Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm glad to be back with you. We'll continue reading in our book, By the Shores of Silver Lake, by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're already on chapter 25, Pa's Bet. That day did not seem real. Laura's eyelids felt sandy, and she yawned all the time. Yet she didn't feel sleepy. At noon, Mr. Hines and the two Mr. Hawthorns came to dinner. In the afternoon, their hammers could be heard pounding on the framework of the new buildings. It seemed a long time since Pa had gone. He did not come that night. All the next day, he did not come. That night, he didn't come. And now Laura was sure that he was having a hard time getting the homestead. Perhaps they might not even get it. If he did not get it, maybe they would go to Oregon. Ma would not let any more strangers sleep in the house. Only Mr. Hines and the two Hawthorns bunked down on the floor by the stove. The weather was not so cold that men would freeze sleeping in their wagons. Ma charged 25 cents just for supper, and far into the night she and Mrs. Bose cooked and Laura washed dishes. So many men came to eat that she didn't even try to count them. Late in the afternoon on the fourth day, Pa came home. He waved as he drove by to put the tired horses in the stable, and he walked smiling into the house. "Well, Carolyn, girls," he said, "we got the claim." "You got it?" Ma said joyfully. "I went after it, didn't I?" Pa laughed. "Brr, it's chilly riding. Let me get to the stove and warm myself." Ma shook down the fire and set the kettle boiling for tea. "Did you have any trouble, Charles?" she asked. "You wouldn't believe it," said Pa. "I never saw such a jam. It looks like the whole country's trying to file on land. I got to Brookings all right the first night, and the next morning when I showed at the land office, I couldn't get anywhere near the front door. Every man had to stand in line and wait his turn. So many were ahead of me that my turn didn't come that day." "You didn't stand there all day, did you, Pa?" Laura cried. "Yep, Flutterbudget, all day." "Without anything to eat?" "Oh, no, Pa," said Carrie. "Hush, that didn't worry me. What worried me were the crowds. I kept thinking, maybe someone ahead of me is getting my quarter section. Carolyn, you never saw such crowds. But my worry wasn't a patch to what would come later." "What, Pa?" Laura asked. "Let a fellow get his breath, Flutterbudget." "Well, when the land office closed, I went along with the jam to get my supper at the hotel. I heard a couple of men talking. One had filed on a claim near Heron. The other said DeSmit was going to be a better town than Heron, and he mentioned the very piece of land that I picked out last winter. He told the numbers. He said it was the only piece of land left anywhere near the town site. So he was going to have it, though he'd never seen it. Well, that was enough for me. I had to beat him to that claim. At first I thought I'd be up bright and early the next morning, and then I figured I wouldn't take that chance. So as soon as I got some supper, I made track for the land office." "I thought it was closed," said Carrie. "It was. I settled right down on the doorstep and spent the night." "Surely you didn't need to do that, Charles," said Ma, handing him a cup of tea. "Need to do that?" Pa repeated. "I wasn't the only man with that idea. Not by a blamed sight. Lucky I got there first. Must have been 40 men waiting there all night, and right next to me were the two fellows that I'd heard talking." He blew on the tea to cool it, and Laura said, But they didn't know you wanted that piece, did they? They didn't know me from Adam, said Pa, drinking the tea, till a fellow came along and sang out, "Hello, Ingles! So you weathered the storm on Silver Lake? Settling down in DeSmit, huh?" "Oh, Pa!" Mary wailed. "Yes, the fat was in the fire then," said Pa. "I knew I wouldn't have a chance if I budged from that door, so I didn't. By sunup, the crowd had doubled, and a couple hundred men must have been pushing and shoving against me before the land office opened. There wasn't any standing in line that day, I tell you. It was each fellow for himself, and the devil be the hindmost. Well, girls, finally the door opened." "How about some more tea, Carolyn?" "Oh, Pa, go on," Laura cried, "please." "Just as it opened," said Pa, "the Huron man crowded me back, pushed me back. 'Get in, I'll hold him,' he said to the other fellow. It meant a fight, and while I fought him, the other would get the homestead. Right then, quick as a wink, somebody landed like a ton of bricks on the Huron man. 'Go on, Ingles,' he yelled. 'I'll fix him.' Owie!" Show you what it looks like. Look at this picture. See the guy that's climbing on that other one? Let's find out some more about that. Pa's long catamount screech curled against the walls, and Ma gasped, "Mercy, Charles!" "And you'll never guess who it was," said Pa. "Mr. Edwards!" Laura shouted. Pa was astonished. "How did you guess it, Laura? He yelled like that in Indian Terry. He's a wildcat from Tennessee," Laura remembered. "Oh, Pa, where is he? Did you bring him?" "I couldn't get him to come with me," said Pa. "I tried every persuasion I could think of, but he's filed a claim south of here and must stay with it to keep the claim jumpers off. He told me to remember him to you, Carolyn, and to Mary and Laura. I never had got that claim if it hadn't been for him. Golly, that sure started a fight." "Was he hurt?" Mary asked anxiously. "Not a scratch. He just started that fight. He got out of it as quick as I ducked inside and started filing my claim. But it was some time before the crowd quieted down. All's well that ends well, Charles," Ma interrupted. "I guess so, Carolyn," Pa said. "Yes, I guess that's right. Well, girls, I bet Uncle Sam $14 against 160 acres of land that we can make out to live on the claim for the next 5 years. Gonna help me win that bet?" "Yes, Pa," Carrie said eagerly, and Mary said, "Yes, Pa, gladly." And Laura promised soberly, "Yes, Pa." "I don't like to think of it as gambling," Ma said in her gentle way. "Everything is more or less a gamble, Carolyn," said Pa. "Nothing's certain but death and taxes." So Pa got the claim. That's wonderful. Well, it's the end of today's chapter, and I'll be back tomorrow and read chapter 26. All right. I want to pray blessings on you and on yours, in your house, out of the house, in the day and in the night, and whatever you do, keep dreaming. Good night. God bless you.